The irony wasn't lost on me that I discovered my wife's affair during a session meant to save our marriage. Dr. Patricia Winters had been our therapist for 3 months. Every Tuesday at 6, Emily and I would sit on her beige couch, maintaining the required 12 inches of space between us that somehow felt like miles. That particular Tuesday in late September started like all the others. Emily arrived separately, her phone clutched in her hand like a lifeline, while I came straight from my accounting firm still wearing my work clothes. "Before we begin," Dr. Winters said, adjusting her reading glasses, "I want to revisit something Emily mentioned in her individual session last week about—" She stopped mid-sentence, her face draining of color. Emily's entire body went rigid beside me. "Individual session?" I turned to my wife, confused. "What individual session?" The silence that followed lasted maybe 5 seconds, but it felt like watching a building collapse in slow motion. Dr. Winters fumbled with her notes, her professional composure cracking. Emily's hands started trembling so badly she had to set down her water bottle. "Emily?" I pressed. "You've been seeing Dr. Winters alone?" "Ryan, I can explain." The individual sessions were to help Emily work through some personal matters, Dr. Winters interjected, clearly trying to salvage the situation. But her eyes kept darting between us with barely concealed panic. "What personal matters?" My voice came out sharper than I intended. "We're supposed to be working on our marriage together. What could you possibly need to discuss without me?" Emily stood abruptly. "I need some air." "Sit down," I said. It wasn't a request. She sat but wouldn't meet my eyes. Her phone buzzed in her lap. It had been doing that constantly for months now. Each time she'd glance at it with this strange mixture of anxiety and anticipation that I'd attributed to work stress. She managed a dental practice across town, and I'd convinced myself the long hours and distraction were just part of the job. "Dr. Winters," I said carefully, "what exactly did Emily share in these individual sessions?" "Ryan, you know I can't breach client confidentiality." "Client confidentiality?" I laughed, but there was no humor in it. "I'm your client too. We're here for couples therapy. When did this become individual therapy?" Dr. Winters set down her notepad with shaking hands. In all our sessions, I'd never seen her rattled. She was always composed, always in control. "Perhaps we should reschedule when everyone has had time to—" "No," I turned to Emily. "Tell me what you've been discussing with Dr. Winters. Tell me right now." Emily's phone buzzed again. Without thinking, she reached for it. I grabbed her wrist, not hard, but firm enough to stop her. "Who keeps texting you?" "Ryan, you're hurting me." I let go immediately, horrified. I'd never laid hands on my wife in anger, not once in our 8 years of marriage. "I'm sorry, but Emily, please. What's going on?" She finally looked at me, and I saw something in her eyes I'd never seen before. Guilt. Raw, undeniable guilt. "There's someone else," she whispered. The words didn't compute at first. They hung in the air like a foreign language I needed time to translate. Someone else. Someone else. "You're having an affair." I said it as a statement, not a question, because suddenly everything made sense. The late nights at the practice, the new lingerie I'd found in the laundry that she'd never worn for me, the way she'd stopped initiating any physical contact months ago, claiming exhaustion, the password she'd added to her phone for security purposes, the girls' weekends that seemed to multiply. "Ryan, how long?" She didn't answer. "How long?" "7 months," she breathed. 7 months. We'd been in therapy for 3 of those months. She'd been sleeping with someone else while sitting next to me on this couch, talking about communication and intimacy and rebuilding trust. The betrayal hit me like a physical blow. "And you knew?" I turned to Dr. Winters. "You've known about this affair and you've been taking our money, my money, for therapy sessions while my wife was screwing around behind my back?" The individual sessions were meant to help Emily gain clarity about what she wanted. Clarity. I stood up so fast the couch shifted backward. You're supposed to help marriages, not facilitate their destruction. Did it ever occur to you to suggest she end the affair before we wasted time and money on this charade? Emily was crying now, mascara streaming down her cheeks. It's not like that. I do want to fix things. I just needed to figure out… Figure out what? Whether he was better than me? Whether you loved him more? My voice was rising, and I didn't care. Were you with him on our anniversary, when you said you had that emergency root canal patient? Her silence was answer enough. Jesus Christ, Emily! I grabbed my jacket from the chair. Our anniversary. We've been together for 10 years, married for 8, and you spent our anniversary with him. Where are you going? She asked, panic creeping into her voice. Away from you. I headed for the door, then stopped. Who is he? Ryan, please. Who is he? It doesn't matter. It matters to me, I shouted. Dr. Winters flinched. Tell me who he is, or I swear I'll make this divorce so ugly you'll wish you'd never been born. Emily's face crumpled. Tyler Bennett. He's the oral surgeon who works in the office next to mine. The name meant nothing to me, which somehow made it worse. This wasn't some old flame or meaningful connection, just some guy who worked nearby. Our entire marriage reduced to rubble for a convenient affair. I walked out of that office and didn't look back. The silence in Dr. Winter's office felt like a living thing, pressing against my eardrums. Emily's confession hung in the air between us. 7 months, Tyler Bennett, our anniversary spent with him while I'd believed her lie about an emergency patient. I need to leave. I stood, my legs surprisingly steady despite the earthquake happening inside my chest. Ryan, please. Emily reached for my arm. I stepped back. Don't. Dr. Winters cleared her throat, her professional mask slipping back into place. Perhaps we should schedule another session to… Are you serious? The laugh that came out of me sounded unhinged. You knew. You sat here for 3 months, took my money, listened to me talk about wanting to reconnect with my wife, and you knew she was sleeping with someone else the entire time. The individual sessions are confidential. Save it. I grabbed my jacket from the back of the couch. You can expect a call from the licensing board. Emily stood, mascara streaking down her face. Ryan, we need to talk about this. Now you want to talk. I turned to face her fully. 7 months, Em. You looked me in the eye every single day and lied. You let me think I was going crazy for noticing you pulling away. You let me suggest therapy like I was the problem. You're not listening. Answer one question. I kept my voice level, though my hands were shaking. Is it still going on? She hesitated. That half-second pause told me everything. Get out of my way. I brushed past her and out into the hallway, my footsteps echoing on the tile floor. Behind me, I heard Emily calling my name, but I didn't stop until I reached my car in the parking garage. My hands trembled as I gripped the steering wheel. I didn't start the engine. Couldn't. The confined space of the car felt safer somehow, contained. I pulled out my phone and scrolled to my brother's number. Hey, what's up? Jason answered on the second ring, upbeat. I could hear his kids yelling in the background. Can you talk? His tone shifted immediately. Yeah, hold on. Muffled sounds, a door closing. What happened? Emily's having an affair. Saying it out loud made it real in a way the office confrontation hadn't. 7 months, with some oral surgeon named Tyler Bennett. Jesus Christ, a long pause. Where are you? Parking garage, therapy office. You okay to drive? Was I? I tested my breathing, my vision. Everything felt sharp-edged and surreal, but functional. Yeah. Come to my place. Melissa's taking the kids to her mom's for dinner. We can talk. I don't want to talk. Then you can sit on my couch and drink my beer in silence, but you're not going home to that house right now. He was right. The thought of our bedroom, our kitchen, all the spaces Emily and I had shared while she was lying to me, I couldn't face that yet. I'll be there in 20. Jason lived in a split level in the suburbs, the kind of place with toys scattered across the lawn and a basketball hoop over the garage. Normal. Safe. Everything my marriage apparently wasn't. He opened the door before I could knock, took one look at my face and stepped aside. "Basement," he said. "Beer's in the fridge down there." I descended the carpeted stairs into his finished basement. Leather couch, big TV, pool table in the corner. I grabbed a beer from the mini fridge and collapsed onto the couch. Jason followed a minute later with his own beer and sat in the recliner across from me. He didn't say anything, just waited. "She spent our anniversary with him," I finally said. "Told me there was a patient emergency." I actually felt bad for her that night, having to work late on our anniversary. That's messed up. The therapist knew. Had been seeing Emily for individual sessions, knew about the whole thing, and still took our money for couples therapy. Jason let out a low whistle. That's got to be some kind of ethics violation. "I'm reporting her." I took a long drink. "Not that it matters. Doesn't change anything." "What are you going to do?" "Divorce her." The word came out flat, final. I mean, what else is there? She's been lying to me for 7 months, probably longer. Who knows when it actually started? "You need a lawyer." "I know." "No, I mean you need one tomorrow. First thing." Jason leaned forward. "My buddy from college, Mike Brennan, does divorce law. Good guy, won't screw you over. I'll text you his info." I nodded, staring at the beer bottle in my hands. The label was already peeling from condensation. "Did she say why?" Jason asked. "Didn't give her the chance. Found out it's still going on and left." "Still going on?" His voice hardened. "She's still seeing him?" Hesitated when I asked. "That's a yes." My phone buzzed. Emily's name lit up the screen. Then again. And again. "She's calling," I said. "You going to answer?" I watched it buzz twice more, then go to voicemail. Immediately started ringing again. No. The calls continued every few minutes for the next hour. Text messages piled up. I could see the notifications without reading them. Jason and I sat in near silence, occasionally commenting on whatever game was playing on TV, neither of us really watching. Around 9, Jason's wife Melissa came home with the kids. I heard them upstairs, the chaos of bedtime routines. Normal family sounds that felt like they belonged to a different universe. Melissa came down briefly, gave me a hug that lasted just long enough to be meaningful without being awkward, and went back upstairs. "You can crash here tonight," Jason offered. "Guest room's made up." "Thanks, but I need to go home eventually. Might as well be now." "You sure?" "No, but I'm going anyway." The drive back to my house, our house, took 15 minutes. Emily's car sat in the driveway. I'd half hoped she wouldn't be there, that I'd have the place to myself to process everything. I sat in my car for a full 5 minutes, staring at the front door. Our house, the one we'd bought 3 years ago, spent weekends painting and furnishing, the place we were supposed to build our life together. Finally, I got out and walked to the door. Emily was sitting on the living room couch when I entered, still in her work clothes, eyes red and swollen. She stood immediately. "Ryan, I'm sleeping in the guest room." I headed for the stairs. "Please, can we just talk?" I stopped, hand on the banister. "Talk? That's rich. You've had 7 months to talk, Em. You chose not to." I know I screwed up." "Screwed up?" I turned to face her. "Screwing up is forgetting our anniversary dinner reservation. Screwing up is snapping at me when you're stressed. This isn't screwing up. This is betrayal. This is choosing to lie to me every single day for months. I didn't mean for it to happen." "Stop." I held up my hand. "I don't want to hear that it just happened, or that you didn't mean to hurt me, or any of the other garbage people say when they get caught cheating. You made choices. Every text, every meeting, every time you let him touch you, those were choices. You're right. Her voice cracked. You're absolutely right. Is it over? She looked at the floor. Look at me and answer the question. Is it over with Tyler? She met my eyes, tears streaming down her face. I don't know. Something inside me went very still and very cold. Then here's what's going to happen, I said, my voice eerily calm. Tomorrow I'm calling a divorce attorney. You can stay here or leave, I don't care, but we're done. 8 years of marriage, 10 years together, and you don't even know if you want to end your affair. It's not that simple. It's exactly that simple. You either want to be married to me or you don't. And you just told me you don't know. That's an answer. I turned and climbed the stairs, went into the guest room, and locked the door behind me. Through the door, I could hear Emily crying in the hallway, but I didn't open it. I sat on the edge of the bed and pulled out my phone. Opened my messages and scrolled past all of Emily's increasingly desperate texts to the one Jason had sent with his friend's contact information. Mike Brennan, divorce attorney. I saved the number and set my phone on the nightstand. Tomorrow, I'd make the call. Tomorrow, I'd start untangling my life from hers. Tonight, I just needed to make it through the next few hours without falling apart. The canoe rental place smelled like sunscreen and wet wood. I stood at the counter watching a college kid with a patchy beard process my credit card, completely unaware that I was about to use his equipment to blow up my marriage in the most literal way possible. First time out on Lake Calhoun? He asked, handing me a life jacket. Something like that. It had been 3 days since I'd moved into Jason's guest room. 3 days of Emily's texts oscillating between apologies and accusations. 3 days of her claiming she needed space to think, while I knew damn well she was spending that space in Tyler Bennett's bed. But this morning, I'd gotten a different kind of text. From Emily's friend Vanessa, of all people. She's taking paddling lessons. Lake Calhoun, 10 a.m. Wednesdays. Thought you should know. I'd stared at that message for a full minute. Paddling lessons. Emily, who'd always refused to go kayaking with me, who said she didn't like getting wet outdoors, was suddenly taking paddling lessons. With an instructor named Chad, according to Vanessa's follow-up text. Same guy every week for a month now. The math clicked into place with sickening clarity. Tyler wasn't the only one. Or maybe Tyler was already old news and Chad was the upgrade. Either way, my wife was out on the water right now, probably laughing and flirting while some bronzed lake rat taught her the proper J-stroke. You'll want to stay close to shore if you're not experienced, the college kid was saying. Weather's supposed to turn later. I nodded, not really listening. I was watching the lake through the window, scanning for her. The rental place had a dozen canoes out already, bright dots of red and yellow scattered across the blue water. Then I saw her. Even from a distance, I recognized Emily's posture, the way she held her shoulders. She was in a green canoe about 100 yards out, and sure enough, there was someone in the stern behind her. A guy with sun-bleached hair, leaning close to adjust her grip on the paddle. Too close. I'll take that one, I said, pointing to a red canoe. 10 minutes later, I was on the water. I hadn't been in a canoe since Boy Scouts, but the mechanics came back quickly enough. The paddle bit into the lake with satisfying resistance. Each stroke carried me closer to my wife and her newest mistake. They hadn't noticed me yet. Emily was laughing at something Chad said, her head thrown back in that way she used to laugh with me. Before the marriage got stale. Before I became the boring accountant husband who worked too much and didn't see her anymore. I could see her just fine now. I angled my approach from behind, letting the canoe glide silently across the calm water. They were practicing some kind of tandem stroke, moving in sync. His hand was on her waist, correcting her form. 50 yards. 40. 30. Emily's paddle faltered mid-stroke. She'd spotted me. I watched the color drain from her face even from this distance. She said something to Chad, who turned to look. He had the kind of casual confidence that comes from spending your whole life being good-looking and athletic. The kind of guy who probably thought other men's wives were just part of the landscape, available for the taking. "Ryan?" Emily's voice carried across the water. "What are you doing here?" I didn't answer, just kept paddling closer. 20 yards now, close enough to see the panic in her eyes. "This is my paddling instructor, Chad. I told you I was taking lessons." "You didn't tell me anything," I said. My voice came out calmer than I felt. "You said you needed space. You said you were thinking about us." "I am. This is just what? Research? Seeing what else is out there while you keep me on hold?" Chad cleared his throat. "Hey man, I don't know what's going on with you two, but this is just a paddling lesson. Nothing." "How long?" I cut him off, eyes locked on Emily. "Ryan, please. Not here." "How long?" 10 yards between our canoes now. I could see her knuckles white on the paddle shaft. Could see Chad's hand still resting on her hip. "It's not what you think," she said. That phrase. That goddamn phrase. The same thing she'd said about Tyler in Dr. Winter's office. The same lie in a different setting. Something in me snapped. I drove my paddle hard into the water, shooting my canoe forward. Emily's eyes went wide. Chad started to say something, probably some placating nonsense about staying calm, but I wasn't interested in calm. I rammed the bow of my canoe into the side of theirs. The impact wasn't huge. Canoes are light, and I wasn't going that fast. But it was enough. Their canoe rocked violently. Emily shrieked. Chad grabbed for the gunnels, trying to stabilize, but I was already pulling back and ramming them again. "Ryan, stop!" The second impact did it. Their canoe tipped past the point of recovery. I had just enough time to see the panic on both their faces before they went over. The splash was spectacular. Emily came up sputtering, her hair plastered to her face, mascara already running. Chad surfaced a second later, looking more annoyed than anything else. They both grabbed for the overturned canoe, treading water. "You're insane!" Emily screamed at me. I sat in my canoe, perfectly dry, perfectly balanced. I'm insane? I'm not the one screwing my way through every recreational activity in Minneapolis. It was just a lesson. Like Tyler was just a colleague? How many are there, Emily? How many guys are you just anything with? Chad was trying to right their canoe, but it was full of water, nearly impossible to flip back over without help. "Dude, you need to chill out. This is assault." "This is marriage," I shot back. "Or what's left of it." Emily was crying now, though it was hard to tell with the lake water streaming down her face. "I never meant for any of this to happen. But you kept doing it anyway." I dipped my paddle back in the water. "You kept lying, kept sneaking around. Even after I caught you, you couldn't stop. Where are you going?" Her voice went shrill with panic. "You can't just leave us here." I looked at her, really looked at her. My wife of 8 years, treading water next to her paddling instructor, both of them clinging to an overturned canoe in the middle of Lake Calhoun. A month ago, this would have destroyed me. Now I just felt tired. "You wanted space," I said. "Here's all the space you need." I paddled away. Behind me, Emily was screaming my name, her voice mixing with Chad's demands that I come back. Other canoes were starting to notice the commotion, beginning to paddle their direction. They'd be fine. Someone would help them. Someone always helped Emily. But it wouldn't be me. Not anymore. I made it back to the rental dock, returned my canoe, and drove to Jason's place in wet shoes from stepping into the shallow water. My phone was already blowing up with texts from Emily. Threats mixed with apologies, mixed with accusations. I turned it off. That night, I lay in Jason's guest bed and thought about revenge. Real revenge. The capsizing had felt good in the moment, but it wasn't enough. Emily would spin it as me being crazy, violent, unhinged. She'd use it against me in the divorce. I needed something bigger, something that would actually cost her something she valued. And then I remembered Chad's comment about his fleet. The way he'd said it, proud and proprietary. This wasn't just a side gig for him. This was his business. I smiled in the dark. The canoe rental office sat quiet at 6:47 a.m. when I arrived with my duffel bag. I'd barely slept at Jason's place, lying awake planning this instead. The sun was just starting to burn off the morning fog over Lake Calhoun. I'd spent yesterday afternoon at a hardware store in Bloomington, far enough from the lake that nobody would connect the dots. Paid cash for a cordless drill, 3 different bit sizes, and a tube of waterproof sealant. The cashier, some kid with acne, didn't even look up. The rental dock was deserted. Chad's canoe and kayak adventures didn't open until 8, but I'd watched him enough over the past few days to know his routine. He'd show up around 7:30 to prep the boats, always stopping at the Caribou Coffee, 2 blocks away first. Large dark roast, no room for cream. Predictable. I'd parked my car 3 streets over, walked through the park wearing a baseball cap and sunglasses. Ridiculous disguise, probably, but the few joggers who passed me didn't give me a second glance. The boats were stored in a wooden shed behind the main dock, padlocked but not alarmed. I'd checked that yesterday while pretending to read rental prices on the posted sign. The lock itself was a joke. A master lock combination I opened in 40 seconds with a shim I'd made from a soda can. YouTube was surprisingly educational. Inside, 12 canoes hung on wall racks, another 8 kayaks stacked in the corner. The smell of mildew and lake water hit me immediately. I pulled out my phone for light, then thought better of it. No digital footprint. I'd brought a small LED flashlight instead, the kind you could buy at any gas station. I started with the canoes on the bottom racks, the ones that would get rented first. The drill was quieter than I'd expected, a soft whirring as I bored into the aluminum hull about 6 inches above the waterline. 2 holes per boat, each one barely wider than a pencil, positioned where they'd be hidden by the natural shadow of the hull's curve. The first boat took me 4 minutes. By the 5th boat, I had it down to 90 seconds. I didn't touch all of them. That would be obvious sabotage, the kind that brought police and insurance investigators. Instead, I did 7 canoes and 3 kayaks, random enough to seem like manufacturing defects or wear and tear. The holes were small enough that they wouldn't be immediately visible during a casual inspection, but large enough that water would seep in steadily once the boats were in the lake. Nobody would drown. That wasn't the point. But they'd get wet, uncomfortable, probably panicked when they realized their boat was taking on water. Chad would have to deal with angry customers, refunds, potential lawsuits. His reputation would tank faster than his boats. I was sealing the last hole with a thin layer of the waterproof sealant, just enough to keep water out until the boat was actually used, when I heard footsteps outside. I froze. The flashlight went dark. Through the shed's warped wooden slats, I could see a figure approaching, but it was too early for Chad. Wrong build entirely. "Hello?" a woman's voice. "Is someone in there?" I didn't breathe. The footsteps came closer, then stopped right outside the door. I could see her shadow through the gaps in the wood. Tall, thin, wearing what looked like running gear. "The rental office doesn't open until 8, she called out. "You need to come back later." I stayed perfectly still. The drill was in my hand, the bit still attached. If she opened the door, if she saw me, the whole thing would collapse. Criminal mischief, breaking and entering, maybe even attempted assault if she got scared and embellished the story. After what felt like an hour but was probably 30 seconds, she moved away. I heard her talking to someone else, another jogger maybe, their voices fading as they continued down the path. I gave it 5 full minutes before I moved again. My heart was hammering so hard I could feel it in my throat. This was insane. I was a CPA, for God's sake. I'd never even gotten a speeding ticket. And here I was, drilling holes in boats like some kind of low-rent criminal. But the image of Emily and Chad in that canoe, her hand on his arm, that intimate lean-in like I didn't exist, like our 8 years together were nothing. It pushed me forward. I finished the last boat, packed up the drill and bits, and slipped out of the shed. The lock went back on, clicked into place like I'd never been there. Phase 1 complete. Phase 2 started that afternoon. I'd gone home, not Jason's place, but the house Emily and I had shared, and retrieved something from the garage. She wasn't there. Probably at work, or maybe with Tyler, or hell, maybe back at the lake with Chad. I didn't care anymore. What I needed was in a box labeled Halloween decorations, buried under string lights in a plastic skeleton. A rubber alligator, about 4 feet long, the kind you'd float in a pool as a joke. I'd bought it 3 years ago for a nephew's birthday party, and it had been gathering dust ever since. It looked fake up close, obviously fake, but from a distance, partially submerged in murky lake water? That might be a different story. I also stopped at a craft store and bought green and brown waterproof paint, the kind used for outdoor decorations. Back at Jason's place, I spent 2 hours making the alligator look less like a pool toy and more like something that might have wandered up from the Mississippi River. I added texture with the paint, darkened the eyes, even glued some moss I'd scraped off a tree in the park onto its back. When I finished, it wouldn't fool anyone who looked closely, but in the early morning light, floating near the rental dock, it might cause enough panic to get people talking. Jason came home while I was working, took one look at the alligator on his kitchen table and shook his head. I don't want to know, do I? Probably not. This about Emily? It's about a lot of things. He grabbed a beer from the fridge, popped it open. You know this won't fix anything, right? Whatever you're planning. I'm not trying to fix anything. I added another layer of paint to the alligator's snout. I'm past fixing. Ryan. She screwed Tyler for 7 months. She lied to my face, to our therapist, probably to everyone we know. And now she's already moved on to some paddling instructor who probably can't even spell commitment. I set down the paintbrush harder than necessary. I'm not trying to fix our marriage. I'm making sure she understands there are consequences. Jason was quiet for a long moment. Then, just don't do anything that lands you in jail. I can't afford your bail. Noted. At 5:30 a.m. the next morning, I was back at the lake with my painted alligator in a large duffel bag. The rental dock was even quieter than before. Just a few serious runners and one old guy fishing off the public pier. I'd chosen a spot about 20 yards from Chad's dock, partially hidden by some reeds, but visible enough that someone would spot it. The water was cold when I waded in, soaking my jeans up to the knees, but I positioned the alligator carefully. It floated perfectly, the moss and paint making it look disturbingly real in the dim light. Then I walked back to my car, changed into dry clothes I'd brought, and drove to a coffee shop with a view of the lake. I ordered an Americano and waited. Chad showed up at 7:22, right on schedule. I watched him unlock the main office, start flipping on lights. A few minutes later, a couple arrived for an early rental. Probably had reservations. Chad walked them down to the dock, gesturing at the boats. That's when the woman screamed. The scream cut through the morning air like a knife through water. I lifted my coffee cup to my lips, watching through the window as a cluster of people gathered at the rental dock. Someone pointed. Someone else pulled out their phone. I'd positioned the alligator perfectly, half submerged near the kayak launch, realistic enough in the early light to trigger exactly this reaction. The woman who'd screamed was backing away from the water's edge, her hand pressed to her chest. Chad emerged from the rental shack, his athletic frame moving with that same easy confidence I'd watched from across the lake. He jogged toward the commotion, probably ready to play the hero, to reassure everyone, to save the day like he'd probably imagined himself saving Emily from her boring accountant husband. I hoped he enjoyed swimming in the dark last night, searching for his precious canoe while Emily treaded water beside him, her confession hanging in the air between gasps for breath. More coffee? The barista appeared at my shoulder. I'm good. I kept my eyes on the dock. Chad had reached the alligator now. He crouched down, and even from this distance I could see the moment he realized. His shoulders tensed. He looked around, scanning the area like he might spot whoever had done this. His gaze swept past the coffee shop window, past me, finding nothing. My phone buzzed. Jason, you alive? Watching the show, I typed back. What show? I didn't answer. Chad was gesturing to the crowd now, probably explaining that it was fake, that there was nothing to worry about. But the damage was done. I could see it in the way people hung back, the way they looked at the water differently now. Fear didn't care about logic. Once it took root, it grew. Another buzz. Ryan, what did you do? I pocketed the phone. The first canoe went out 20 minutes later. A young couple, probably tourists, Chad helping them launch with his practiced smile. He was good at this, the reassurance, the charm, the steady hands guiding the boat into the water. I wondered if that's what had attracted Emily. The competence. The way he probably made her feel safe while helping her destroy our marriage. I checked my watch. The holes I'd drilled were small, maybe a 1/4 inch each, positioned low on the hull where they wouldn't be immediately visible during a casual inspection. I'd calculated it carefully, not big enough to sink a canoe quickly, but enough that water would seep in gradually. 15, maybe 20 minutes before they'd notice their feet getting wet. Another 10 before it became a real problem. The couple paddled away from the dock, their strokes uneven and enthusiastic. Chad waved them off, then turned back to help the next customers. I should have left. Should have gone home, called my lawyer, started the actual process of dismantling my life in a legal, rational way. Instead, I ordered another coffee and settled deeper into my chair. My phone rang this time. Jason, not giving up. What? I answered. Where are you? Coffee shop. Which one? Does it matter? It does if you're doing something stupid. His voice carried that older brother authority, the same tone he'd used when we were kids and he caught me sneaking out. You need to come stay with me for a few days. Clear your head. My head is perfectly clear. Ryan. I capsized a canoe. That's it. They're fine. They swam to shore. Nobody got hurt. Silence on the other end. Then, what else did you do? I watched another couple climb into a canoe. Chad was busy with a family now, 3 kids in life jackets, the parents looking nervous. Nothing that can be traced back to me. Jesus Christ, Jason exhaled hard. Listen to yourself. You sound like what? Like someone whose wife spent 7 months screwing another man? Like someone who found out she was already moving on to the next one? Like someone whose marriage counselor knew the whole time and said nothing? Like someone who's going to end up arrested? The family pushed off from the dock. The kids were laughing, paddles splashing. Their canoe sat lower in the water than it should have. Not dramatically, just enough that someone paying attention might notice. But people rarely paid attention until it was too late. I have to go, I said. Ryan, don't... I hung up, turned the phone to silent. Finished my coffee. 12 minutes later, the first couple turned back. I could see them paddling harder now, their movements less playful. The woman kept looking down at her feet. The man was saying something, gesturing toward the dock. They were still 100 yards out. Chad noticed. He walked to the edge of the dock, hand shading his eyes against the morning sun. Even from here, I could read his body language shifting from casual to concerned. The couple made it back. Barely. Their canoe was riding so low that water sloshed over the sides with each stroke. Chad grabbed the bow as they reached the dock, hauling it up. Water poured out. He crouched down, running his hands along the hull, and I knew the exact moment he found the holes. His whole body went still. He looked up at the lake. At the family still paddling around, oblivious. At the two other canoes I'd sabotaged sitting in the rack behind him, waiting for the next customers. I stood, dropped a 10 on the table, and walked out. The morning air hit my face, cool and clean. Behind me, I could hear shouting from the dock. Chad was pulling canoes out of the water now, checking each one. The family was being waved back in. Other customers were gathering, confused, demanding explanations. I walked to my car, parked 3 blocks away, got in. Sat there with my hands on the steering wheel. My phone lit up with texts. Jason. Jason again. A number I didn't recognize, probably Emily, calling from somewhere. I ignored them all. What I'd done was criminal. Breaking and entering. Vandalism. Destruction of property. If Chad called the police, if they investigated, if they found evidence, fingerprints, security footage, anything, I'd be arrested, charged, possibly convicted. I should have felt scared. Should have felt regret. Should have felt something other than this cold satisfaction spreading through my chest. Instead, I thought about Emily treading water in the middle of Lake Calhoun, her carefully styled hair plastered to her face, her voice breaking as she tried to explain. It's not what you think. Like there was any version of this that wasn't exactly what I thought. I started the car. My phone rang again. This time, a name I recognized. Vanessa. Emily's friend. The one who'd told me about the paddling lessons in the first place. I almost didn't answer. But curiosity won. Ryan? Her voice was tight. Where's Emily? How should I know? She's not answering her phone. She didn't come home last night. I'm worried. I pulled out of the parking spot, headed toward the main road. Did you check with Chad? Who? Her paddling instructor, the one you told me about. A pause. Ryan, what did you do? I went to watch her practice, found them very close, very focused on their strokes. The bitterness leaked through despite my best efforts to sound casual. I may have interrupted. Oh my God. She's fine. Probably at a hotel somewhere. Or maybe with Tyler. Does she still see him? Or has she moved on completely? This isn't funny. No, I agreed. It's really not. I hung up before she could respond. Turned onto the highway, putting distance between myself and the lake, the rental dock, the evidence of what I'd done. The satisfaction was already fading, replaced by something emptier. Colder. I'd destroyed Chad's business, or at least damaged it badly enough that he'd be dealing with angry customers, refunds, and repairs for weeks. I'd humiliated Emily. I'd broken laws. And I still felt exactly as betrayed as I had yesterday. My lawyer's card was in my wallet. Keith Brennan, divorce attorney, came recommended by a guy at work who'd gone through his own nightmare 2 years ago. I'd called him the day after the therapy session, made an appointment for next week. Maybe it was time to move that appointment up. The satisfaction lasted about as long as it took me to get back to Jason's apartment. I sat in my car in the parking lot, hands still gripping the steering wheel, watching the sun climb higher through the windshield. The adrenaline was draining away, leaving something cold and hollow in its place. What had I actually accomplished? Chad would file an insurance claim, maybe lose a few days of business. Emily would find another instructor, another lake, another excuse to avoid dealing with what she'd done to us. And I'd committed multiple felonies. The thought hit me like ice water. Breaking and entering. Criminal damage to property. The drill was still in my trunk, probably covered in my fingerprints. The fake alligator. God, what had I been thinking? Someone could trace the purchase. Security cameras at the hardware store. My credit card receipt. I'd been so focused on the gesture, the symbolic middle finger to Emily and her latest distraction, that I hadn't thought past the moment of watching Chad's world tilt sideways. My phone buzzed. Jason. Where are you? Parking lot. You've been sitting out there for 20 minutes. Get up here. I found him in the kitchen, coffee already poured. He took one look at my face and set down his mug. What did you do? I told him. All of it. The early morning break-in, the drill, the holes in the boats, the fake alligator. He listened without interrupting, his expression shifting from concern to disbelief to something close to anger. Ryan. Jesus Christ, Ryan. I know. You broke into a business. You destroyed property worth, what, thousands of dollars? I know. This isn't like ramming a canoe. That was stupid, but this... He ran both hands through his hair. This is premeditated. This is the kind of thing that gets you arrested, prosecuted, sued into oblivion. I know. My voice came out flat. I wasn't thinking clearly. No kidding. Jason paced the length of the kitchen. Okay, we need to think. Did anyone see you? I don't think so. It was barely 5 in the morning. Security cameras? The rental place doesn't have any. I checked before. He stopped pacing. You checked before? So this wasn't some spur-of-the-moment thing? I drove by yesterday, after I got home from the lake. Oh, that's so much better. His voice dripped sarcasm. That's premeditation, Ryan. That's what prosecutors love. I slumped into a chair at his kitchen table. What do I do? First, you get rid of that drill. Today. Not in a dumpster near here, not anywhere that connects to you. Drive to a different county. Find a random trash bin behind a strip mall. Wipe it clean first. Okay. Second, you delete any internet searches related to this. Fake alligators, boat sabotage, whatever you looked up. I hadn't thought about my search history. Another oversight. Done. Third, and I can't believe I'm saying this, you pray Chad doesn't have cameras you didn't notice. You pray none of his neighbors have Ring doorbells pointing at the street. You pray no one was out for an early jog and saw your car. The hollow feeling in my chest expanded. And if someone did? Then you get a criminal defense attorney instead of a divorce attorney. Jason sat down across from me. Look, I get it. Emily blew up your life. She cheated, she lied, she's out there playing water sports with some instructor while you're trying to hold yourself together. But this isn't you. Maybe it is now. No. His voice went hard. You're angry. You're hurt. You're entitled to both. But you're not a criminal, and you're not going to become one because Emily decided she'd rather screw around than work on her marriage. My phone buzzed again. Unknown number. I stared at it. Answer it, Jason said. I did. Mr. Calloway. A woman's voice, professional but cautious. Yes? This is Officer Jennifer Walsh with the Minneapolis Police Department. I need to ask you a few questions about an incident at Calhoun Paddle Rentals yesterday afternoon. My stomach dropped. Jason was watching me, his face tense. What kind of incident? A witness reported seeing you deliberately ram another canoe, causing 2 individuals to capsize into the lake. The business owner filed a complaint. We'd like you to come down to the station to give a statement. Not the break-in, the canoe ramming. I felt a weird flash of relief, followed immediately by dread. I'd like to speak with an attorney first. That's your right, Mr. Calloway. But I should inform you that we're considering charges of assault and reckless endangerment. The sooner you cooperate, the better it looks. I understand. I'll contact an attorney and get back to you. Don't leave town, Mr. Calloway. She hung up. I set the phone down carefully like it might explode. The canoe thing? Jason asked. Yeah, someone reported it. They want me to come in for questioning. Did you just tell a cop you want an attorney? Yes. Good. That's the smartest thing you've done in 48 hours. He grabbed his laptop. We're finding you a criminal defense attorney, right now. By noon, I was sitting in a law office downtown, across from a woman named Barbara Kemp, who specialized in assault cases. She was maybe 50, gray hair pulled back, sharp eyes that missed nothing. Tell me exactly what happened, she said. Leave nothing out. I walked her through it. The tip from Vanessa, driving to the lake, seeing Emily and Chad together, the rage that had whited out my thinking, the moment I'd rammed their canoe. Did you intend to hurt them? No, I just wanted, I don't know, to disrupt them, to make them as uncomfortable as I felt. Did either of them sustain injuries? Not that I saw. They were treading water when I left. She made notes. The good news is that assault charges might be hard to prove without injury or credible threat. The bad news is that reckless endangerment is easier, and the witness statement gives them leverage. What am I looking at? Worst case, misdemeanor assault, up to 90 days in jail and a fine. More likely, if we cooperate and show remorse, we can probably negotiate this down to a fine and probation. Maybe anger management classes. And my divorce case? This won't help. Your wife's attorney will use it to paint you as unstable, potentially violent. It could affect property division, maybe even spousal support if she asks for it. I thought about Emily, about her sitting across from her own attorney, spinning this into proof that I was the problem. The unfairness of it burned. There's something else, I said. Barbara's pen paused. Go on. Early this morning, I broke into the rental facility where that instructor works. I drilled holes in several of his boats. The silence stretched. Barbara set down her pen. Tell me you're joking. I'm not. Did anyone see you? I don't think so. Security cameras? I didn't see any. She closed her eyes briefly. Mr. Calloway, I need you to understand something. What you just described is felony burglary and felony criminal damage to property. In Minnesota, that's up to 5 years in prison and $10,000 in fines. Each boat could be a separate count. I know it was stupid. Stupid doesn't begin to cover it. She leaned forward. Have the police contacted you about this? No, just the canoe incident. Then here's what you're going to do. You're going to say nothing about this to anyone. Not the police, not your brother, not your wife. If they find evidence and come asking questions, you invoke your right to remain silent immediately and call me. Do you understand? Yes? And you're going to get rid of any evidence connecting you to this. The drill, the alligator, anything you purchased. Today. My brother already told me to. Smart brother. She reopened her notepad. Now, let's focus on the canoe incident. That's what's in play right now. We're going to schedule a meeting with Officer Walsh. You're going to express remorse, and we're going to see if we can resolve this without formal charges. Okay. And Ryan? She fixed me with a hard stare. No more revenge fantasies. No more sabotage. No more vigilante justice. You want to hurt your wife? You do it in divorce court, with documentation and legal strategy, not with drills and fake alligators. Are we clear? We're clear. But as I left her office, I couldn't shake the feeling that clarity had come too late. The fake alligator sat in my trunk like a ticking bomb. I'd parked 3 blocks from Jason's house, staring at the rubber reptile through the rearview mirror. Barbara's words kept looping through my head. They're going to look for evidence. Your car, your home, anywhere you have access to. I couldn't keep it. Couldn't throw it in Jason's trash. Couldn't dump it in a dumpster near his apartment. Too many cameras. Too much risk of someone connecting me to it. My phone buzzed. Emily's lawyer. I let it go to voicemail, then immediately regretted it. Barbara had been clear. Don't engage, but don't look like you're hiding either. I listened to the message on speaker. Mr. Calloway, this is David Preston with Whitman and Associates. I represent Emily Calloway in your dissolution proceedings. I'm calling to inform you that we'll be filing a motion for a restraining order based on your assault of Mrs. Calloway at Lake Calhoun on Saturday. We have a witness statement and photographic evidence of injuries sustained during the incident. Please have your attorney contact our office. My hands tightened on the steering wheel. Injuries. Emily hadn't been injured, she'd gotten wet. Chad maybe bumped his shoulder when I shoved their canoe, but that was it. They were manufacturing a narrative, painting me as violent and unstable. Which, to be fair, the drilled canoes and fake alligator didn't exactly contradict. I called Barbara. Emily's attorney left a message. They're going for a restraining order. Expected, Barbara said. She sounded like she was eating something crunchy. Domestic cases always go this route. Makes you look dangerous, makes her look like a victim, helps her position in the divorce. What did the message say exactly? I played it for her. Photographic evidence of injuries, Barbara repeated. Could be real, could be staged. Doesn't matter much either way. A restraining order isn't a criminal conviction. It's civil. But it does make things harder for you if the criminal charges proceed. Shows a pattern. What do? Nothing. I'll respond to Preston. You do not contact Emily. You do not go anywhere near her, her work, her home, or any place you know she frequents. That includes Lake Calhoun and that rental place. The rental place is probably shut down anyway. Silence on the other end. Then, Ryan, please tell me you didn't do anything else to that rental business. I said nothing. Jesus Christ, more crunching. What did you do? I need to dispose of some items. Items that might connect me to hypothetical property damage. Stop. Do not tell me what you did. Do not tell me what items. Attorney-client privilege doesn't cover ongoing criminal activity, and I'm not going to suborn perjury. She exhaled hard. Here's what I'm going to say, speaking hypothetically. If someone had items that might be problematic, that person should not dispose of them in any way that creates more evidence. No dumping in public places with cameras, no asking friends to hide things, no storage units rented in your name. So what? I'm speaking hypothetically about a hypothetical person, Barbara cut me off. That hypothetical person should consider that sometimes the best place to hide something is somewhere completely ordinary and unremarkable. Somewhere it wouldn't look out of place. And that hypothetical person should absolutely not create a trail doing it. She hung up. I sat in the car for another 20 minutes, thinking. Somewhere ordinary. Somewhere unremarkable. I drove to a sporting goods store in Bloomington, 40 minutes away. Paid cash for a cheap tent, a sleeping bag, and a camping cookware set. Bought a fishing rod and tackle box. Loaded everything into my trunk alongside the alligator. Then I drove to a different sporting goods store in Edina. Bought a large camping backpack and some hiking boots. More cash. At a third store in St. Louis Park, I picked up a camp stove and a cooler. By the time I was done, my trunk looked like I was preparing for a wilderness expedition. The alligator fit perfectly inside the camping backpack, just another piece of gear. The drill went into the tackle box, wrapped in a towel, surrounded by fishing lures and weights. I drove to a public storage facility near the airport. Rented a 5x5 unit, paid 6 months in advance, cash. Gave them a fake name, Tom Wilson, and a Google Voice number I'd set up on a burner app. The clerk barely looked at me. I unloaded everything into the unit. Tent, sleeping bag, cookware, fishing rod, backpack with the alligator inside, tackle box with the drill buried in it. Arranged it all like someone's forgotten camping gear, stuff you'd store between trips. Locked it up. Pocketed the key. It wasn't perfect. But it was better than my trunk, better than Jason's apartment, better than anywhere directly connected to me. I drove back to Jason's place as the sun set, feeling the adrenaline finally start to drain. He was on the couch watching a Twins game when I walked in. "You look like hell," he said. "Emily's lawyer called. They're filing for a restraining order." Jason muted the TV. "Based on what?" "The canoe thing. They're claiming she has injuries." "Does she?" "Not from me." I dropped onto the other end of the couch. Maybe she and Chad staged some bruises. Maybe she actually got hurt when they capsized and she's blaming me. I don't know. Can they do that? Just lie? They can file whatever they want. Doesn't mean a judge will grant it. I rubbed my face. But Barbara says it makes me look worse if the criminal charges go forward. Jason was quiet for a moment. "You need to stop, man." "Stop what?" "Whatever you're doing. Whatever you're planning." He turned to face me fully. "I know you, Ryan. You've got that look. That same look you had when you drilled those canoes." "I didn't." "Don't." Jason held up a hand. "I don't want to know details, but I know you did something, and I know you're thinking about doing more. And I'm telling you, as your brother, you need to stop before you end up in jail." I wanted to argue, wanted to tell him he didn't understand, that Emily deserved everything coming to her, that I was just evening the scales. But he was right. I was spiraling. Each act of revenge felt justified in the moment, felt like taking back control. But I wasn't in control. I was reacting, escalating, making everything worse. "I'm done," I said. "No more." Jason studied me. "You mean that?" "Yeah." And I did. Mostly. "I'm done." We watched the rest of the game in silence. The Twins lost in the 9th inning. A routine fly ball dropped in the outfield. 2 runs scoring. Felt about right. The restraining order hearing was set for Thursday morning. Barbara met me outside the courthouse at 8:30, carrying a leather portfolio and wearing a navy suit that probably cost more than my car payment. "Emily will be here with Preston," she said as we walked toward the entrance. "Do not look at her. Do not speak to her. Do not react to anything she or her lawyer says. You sit quietly. You let me handle it." "Got it." "I mean it, Ryan. Judges notice everything in these hearings. You roll your eyes, you shake your head, you mutter under your breath. It all counts against you." We went through security and took the elevator to the 4th floor. Family court. Emily was already there, sitting on a bench outside courtroom 4C with her lawyer. She wore a cream-colored blouse and dark slacks, her hair pulled back in a neat bun. Professional, composed, victim-ready. She had a small bandage on her left wrist. I felt Barbara's hand on my arm, a gentle pressure. "Keep walking." We sat on a bench across the hall. I stared at the floor tiles, counting the flecks in the linoleum. "Mr. Preston," Barbara called out, "can we talk before we go in?" Emily's lawyer stood, mid-50s, gray at the temples, expensive suit. He walked over with a folder. "Ms. Kemp, your client's behavior has been escalating. We have documented evidence of assault, harassment, and stalking. Mrs. Calloway fears for her safety." "My client exercised poor judgment in a moment of emotional distress," Barbara said smoothly. "He's never been violent before, has no criminal record, and has already been advised to maintain distance. A restraining order is unnecessary." "He rammed her canoe. She has bruises on her wrist and shoulder from the impact." "She has a bandage," Barbara corrected, "which could cover anything or nothing, and the incident occurred on a public lake where my client had every right to be. Any contact was incidental." Preston's jaw tightened. "The witness statement says he deliberately rammed them." "The witness statement says he approached their canoe, and there was contact. Interpretation of intent is subjective." They went back and forth for another few minutes, legal posturing and negotiation. I kept my eyes on the floor. Finally, Preston said, "We're willing to withdraw the restraining order petition if Mr. Calloway agrees to a mutual no-contact provision in the divorce proceedings." Barbara glanced at me. I nodded slightly. Agreed, she said. Draft the language and send it over. Preston walked back to Emily. They spoke in low voices, her face tight with what looked like frustration. What just happened? I asked Barbara quietly. You got lucky. They didn't want to risk a hearing where a judge might deny the order and make Emily look like she's exaggerating. Better to get you to agree to no contact voluntarily and save face. She closed her portfolio. But this doesn't change the criminal investigation. That's still ongoing. The courtroom doors opened. A clerk called out a different case name. Emily and Preston stood and walked toward the elevator without looking back. I watched her go, that cream blouse disappearing into the crowd. For the first time in weeks, I felt something other than rage. I felt tired. The divorce was finalized on a Tuesday in February, 6 months after Dr. Winter's slip-up changed everything. No dramatic courtroom showdown, no tearful confrontations. Just signatures on documents in separate rooms. Emily with her lawyer in one, me with Barbara in another. The criminal charges for the canoe incident got reduced to disorderly conduct, a misdemeanor, a fine, 40 hours of community service. The prosecutor couldn't prove intent to harm, and Chad's willingness to testify evaporated when his insurance paid out for the manufacturing defects in his rental fleet. He never connected me to the drilled boats. Either he didn't look hard enough, or he figured insurance fraud beat admitting his equipment wasn't maintained properly. I sold the house, split the proceeds with Emily 50-50, minus what I'd contributed to the down payment from my inheritance. Barbara had been thorough with the documentation. Emily got her car, her dental practice, her half of our savings. I got my retirement accounts, my car, and my self-respect back. Tyler Bennett, I learned through the grapevine, had moved to Arizona 3 months into our divorce proceedings. Apparently his wife, yes, wife, had found out about the affair and given him an ultimatum. He chose Arizona. Emily acted surprised when I mentioned it during a settlement discussion, but I saw through it. She'd never asked if he was married, never cared to know. Chad, the paddling instructor, lasted about 6 weeks after the canoe incident. Vanessa told me, we'd stayed in touch, strangely enough, that Emily had moved on to a personal trainer at her gym, then a pharmaceutical sales rep, then someone else. The pattern was clear enough. I did my community service at a food bank, sorting donations every Saturday morning for 10 weeks. Met a volunteer coordinator named Rachel, who laughed at my terrible jokes and didn't ask about my past. We got coffee once. Then dinner. Nothing serious, nothing rushed. Just 2 people enjoying conversation without the weight of betrayal crushing every word. Dr. Patricia Winters lost her license. I filed a complaint with the state board, and apparently I wasn't the first. Turned out she'd been conducting individual sessions with multiple clients from couples therapy, crossing ethical boundaries she'd sworn to maintain. The board revoked her license permanently. I felt no satisfaction when I heard, just a dull acknowledgement that consequences existed, even if they came too late. Jason and I are closer now than we've been since childhood. Thursday nights are ours. Wings, basketball games, conversations that don't require explanations. He never asks about the storage unit. I never tell him I finally emptied it last month, drove the camping gear to a Goodwill 3 counties away, and dropped the drill in a recycling bin at a construction site. Some secrets are better kept. I saw Emily once after the divorce was final, completely by accident, at a coffee shop downtown. She was with someone new, younger guy, athletic build, expensive watch. She saw me at the same time I saw her. For a moment, we just looked at each other across the crowded room. She looked different. Thinner, maybe? Harder around the eyes? Or maybe she'd always looked that way and I'd been too close to notice. I nodded once. She nodded back. We both turned away. No words needed, nothing left to say. People ask me sometimes if I regret how I handled it. The canoe ramming, the sabotage, the revenge that accomplished nothing except making me feel worse? The honest answer is complicated. I regret the crimes. I regret letting anger turn me into someone I didn't recognize. I regret giving Emily ammunition to paint herself as the victim when she'd been the one who destroyed our marriage. But I don't regret learning who she really was. I don't regret discovering that the woman I'd loved for 10 years was capable of looking me in the eye while lying about where she'd been, who she'd been with, what our marriage meant to her. Some people are builders. They construct lives, relationships, futures with careful attention and steady hands. Others are consumers. They take what they want, discard what bores them, and move on without looking back at the wreckage. Emily was always a consumer. I just didn't see it until she'd consumed everything we'd built and started shopping for the next thing. I'm okay now. Not healed. I don't think you fully heal from betrayal that deep. But functional. Moving forward. Building something new from the pieces that remained after everything burned down. I learned that revenge doesn't fix betrayal. It doesn't restore what was lost or ease the pain of being discarded. It just adds your own mistakes to the pile of wreckage, making everything heavier. I learned that some people will never take accountability for the damage they cause. They'll rewrite history, play the victim, convince themselves and others that they were justified in their choices. You can't force someone to see themselves clearly if they're committed to the delusion. Most importantly, I learned that the person you become in your worst moments doesn't have to be the person you remain. I made choices I'm not proud of. I let pain turn into rage, and rage into actions that could have destroyed my future. But I stopped. I pulled back from the edge before I fell completely over. That has to count for something. On my last day of community service, the food bank coordinator, an older woman named Margaret, who'd survived her own divorce 20 years ago, pulled me aside. "You did good work here," she said. "You showed up on time, did what needed doing, didn't complain. Whatever brought you here, you paid your debt." "Thank you. Can I give you some advice?" "Sure." "Forgiveness isn't about them. It's about you." She squeezed my shoulder. "You don't have to forget what happened. You don't have to reconcile or make peace or any of that. But you do have to let go of the weight. Otherwise, you'll carry it forever, and it'll crush everything new you try to build." I thought about that on the drive home. About Emily, about Tyler and Chad and whoever came after them. About the rage I'd carried like a shield, the revenge I'd pursued like justice. Margaret was right. The weight was mine to carry or release. Emily had moved on. Probably never looked back, never lost sleep, never questioned whether she'd done the right thing. I was the one still holding the bag. So I let it go. Not all at once. Not in some dramatic moment of clarity. But gradually, deliberately. Like setting down something heavy one piece at a time. I stopped checking Emily's social media. Stopped asking mutual friends about her. Stopped rehearsing arguments in my head about what I should have said, what she should have admitted, how things should have gone differently. I focused on what I could control: my work, my health, my relationships with people who actually valued me. I started running again, something I'd abandoned during the marriage. Joined a recreational basketball league, took a cooking class and learned I was terrible at it, but enjoyed trying. I built a life that was mine alone, not defined by who I'd been married to or what she'd done to me. And slowly, the weight lifted. There's no neat moral to this story. No clear lesson that makes everything make sense. Betrayal happens. Good people get hurt by people they trusted. Marriages fail despite best efforts. Revenge feels justified but solves nothing. The legal system is imperfect. Consequences are unevenly distributed. But here's what I know now. You can survive betrayal without becoming the villain in your own story. You can feel rage without letting it consume you. You can make mistakes, real ones, and still find your way back to being someone you respect. The person who rammed that canoe who drilled those holes, who let anger override judgment. That was me at my worst. But it wasn't all of me, and it doesn't have to define the rest of my life. Emily made her choices. I made mine. We both have to live with the consequences. The difference is, I'm learning from them. And that, in the end, might be the only victory that actually matters.